Imagine a world where private education isn't just a privilege of the wealthy, but accessible to all. Could Labour's new policy on taxing private schools be the key? In the heart of the United Kingdom, Labour has proposed a novel policy that's causing quite the stir. The plan? To levy a tax on private schools, a sector that's been predominantly the domain of the affluent. This tax, they say, is not meant to punish, but to level the playing field, to open up opportunities for everyone, regardless of their financial standing. They envision a society where quality education isn't a luxury, but a right for all. But as with any major policy change, it's not without its share of controversy. Some hail it as a victory for equality, while others fear it may deepen the class divide and stoke a punishing class war. This policy is causing waves, but is it a tidal wave of progress or a tsunami of disaster? Let's dive in. Every coin has two sides, and so does this policy. First, we examine the sparkling side of the coin, the potential benefits. So, what could this policy bring to the table? Firstly, let's talk about increased funding for public schools. If private schools were taxed, the revenue could potentially be funneled into the public education sector. This could mean better resources for public schools, improved classrooms, and overall a higher quality of education for students who attend these schools. Imagine the impact on a child's learning experience if they had access to state-of-the-art facilities and resources. It is a promising prospect indeed. The second possible benefit is creating a more equal access to education. If private schools were taxed, it could level the playing field a bit. It could make education less of a privilege and more of a right. Every child, regardless of their socioeconomic background, should have the opportunity to receive a quality education. This policy could be a step in that direction. Lastly, let's consider the potential for social mobility. One of the great promises of education is its capacity to be a great equalizer. Theoretically, with a more equal distribution of educational resources, we could see an increase in social mobility. There could be more opportunities for children from lower-income families to climb the social ladder through their educational achievements. But it's important to remember that these are potential benefits. They depend on the execution of the policy and the allocation of the tax revenue. And as we all know, the world of policymaking is often more complex than it first appears. So, it seems like a fairy tale ending, right? But remember, every rose has its thorns. Now, let's flip the coin and look at the not-so-shiny side, the potential drawbacks of this policy. First off, let's talk about the potential financial strain on families. The policy proposes a tax on private school fees, which means parents who have chosen private education for their children may face an additional burden. This could be especially challenging for middle-income families who have stretched their budgets for the sake of their children's education. They might find themselves in a tight spot, caught between increasing costs and the desire to provide the best education for their children. Next, there's the potential decline in private school enrollment. With the increase in cost, some parents might decide to move their children to public schools. While this might seem like a win for social equality, it could also lead to overcrowding in public schools. Moreover, it might not necessarily lead to a more diverse student body in private schools, as one could assume that only the wealthiest families would be able to afford the taxed fees, further widening the gap between the haves and the have-nots. Finally, let's consider the potential challenges for private schools to maintain quality education. Private schools often rely on the fees they collect to fund their operations, including hiring top-tier educators and maintaining top-notch facilities. A tax on these fees might result in a decrease in resources, which could potentially affect the quality of education these schools can provide. This could, in turn, create a ripple effect, impacting not just the students and their families, but also the broader educational landscape. So while the policy might be aimed at promoting social equality, it's important to consider the potential ripple effects and unintended consequences. It could potentially lead to financial strain on families, a decline in private school enrollment, and challenges for private schools in maintaining quality education. It's clear that this policy isn't just a simple fairy tale. It's a complex story with potential for both triumph and tragedy. So, is this policy a knight in shining armor or a dragon in disguise? It's hard to say. We've examined the pros and cons of Labor's potential new policy on taxing private schools. On one hand, we have the prospect of increased funding for public education and a potential leveling of the educational playing field. On the other, we've heard concerns about the potential negative impacts on private schools and the possibility of exacerbating class divisions. It's a complex issue with valid points on both sides of the argument. It's important to remember that these are just potential outcomes, and the real-world effects of such a policy could vary greatly. We encourage you to take this information and form your own opinion. The final chapter of this story is yet to be written. But one thing is certain, the world of education is in for a dramatic twist. Stay tuned to our channel for more updates on this and other policy changes. And don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button. Until next time, keep questioning, keep learning.